immaterialists, people who thought that trees didn't exist. And incidentally, the tree falling in the forest, he never said that. But it's a good way of summarizing an aspect of his view, right? If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? So a tree fell here while we were here, but no one was around. So we were asking that question. But actually, on Berkeley's view, if the tree falls in the forest and no one's around, there's no tree either. Okay, so actually, it's a more radical view, right? Because there's no one there to perceive it, right? So it's not just about whether it makes a sound. On Berkeley's view, there's no tree, except that he thinks God exists and God perceives everything. So immaterialism was, in a sense, in Berkeley's lifetime and immediately afterwards, a failure in that sense that he didn't convince anyone of his philosophy. Okay. So the second strand, and the one that's specifically associated with Whitehall, is his project to found a college in Bermuda, the so-called Bermuda Project. That's what brought him to Rhode Island. So this was a staging post to found this college that he envisioned on the island of Bermuda. By the time he got here, he'd been promised the money for the college, so £20,000 from the British Crown. His vision for the college was it was going to be a pan-racial college, so it was going to educate not just white colonials, but also Native Americans and freed black slaves. So he had a certain kind of utopian vision for this college in Bermuda. But as many of you know, it didn't succeed. Basically, when he got here, the political winds changed, the money never came through for the project. After 2.5 years living here, he turns around, goes back to England, never gets to Bermuda, and his college, he never sees his college founded in Bermuda. Okay? And he'd drawn up some pretty detailed plans for it. I mean, he had an idea of what the curriculum was going to be. If you go inside afterwards, there's a map that he drew up of how he thought it was going to be laid out. He had a name for it. It was going to be St. Paul's College. He even designed a seal for it. So, he was serious about this thing, but he was not able to see it through. He never got to Bermuda. So what I want to talk about today is the sense in which these two failures, and they were, in the context of his lifetime, failures. If you take a broader view of things, maybe it's not so clear they were actually failures. Okay? But if you take a longer time view, both the immaterialism piece and the Bermuda Project piece are maybe not the failures you might think they are. So I'm going to talk about that. And then what I'll also try and argue, this is maybe more contentious, would be actually that it's a good thing that his two projects failed in his lifetime. So actually, the quote success of the projects may not have actually turned out to have been a good thing if those two things had succeeded. Okay, so I'll see if I can get to all of that. So let me start with, so along the way, I'm also interested in, I've been thinking this summer, and also as I've done more historical work about this philosopher, having originally encountered him as a philosopher, is the notion of what the best way to preserve the legacy of a philosopher is, right? To honor the legacy of a philosopher. Because I think we tend to think of, philosophy as an abstract kind of way of thinking about things, and we tend to think of preservation of legacy in terms